Okay.
Just let me know whenever you're ready for me to start.
Okay. We'll just, I guess, wait for some people to show up first.
Yeah, sure. How has the event been going? How does it really work? I've never used StreamYard before, so.
Oh, it's really easy. It's basically just Google Meet.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there's some people. Okay. So I think should we wait a couple minutes?
Yeah, we can definitely wait as long as you need. Whenever you're ready for me to start, I'll start.
All right. Thanks.
Cool. I'm gonna drop the slide deck in here. Can I add it in this chat? Or I have to connect my YouTube account.
I think you can also present it.
Yeah.
Or add it in the private chat as well.
Hi everyone. Yeah. If I send it in the private chat, can you share it with everyone in the actual?
You can also, if you see a present button in the very bottom, you can also present like this slideshow from there too.
Oh yeah, I just want some people to have the slide deck because there's a lot of links to click, but I'll also, yeah, there's also QR codes so people can have them. Hello, where's everyone from right now? I'm currently in New Jersey, if anyone's nearby.
Oh, I think the slide deck needs access. I don't think anyone can just open it.
Oh, whoops. Okay. Should be better now. Toronto, Ottawa? Nice. I've never been yet, but I do want to go.
So you want that shared with the hackers then?
Yeah, we can share that with the hackers. I'll start presenting my screen real quick, but.
Okay. Well, hi everyone. I'm Nilgyan, a marketing executive, and this is Lillian from Postman, who's going to be doing a workshop for Intro to APIs. So you can take it away.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for the introduction. I'm going to start sharing my screen. First of all, thank you everyone for joining on an evening, and this is the start of your hackathon, so I'm very honored to be here and introducing APIs to you. And whether you've worked with APIs before, if you're planning on working with APIs today, I'm sure you can come away from this workshop learning something new. So very excited to get started with you all. I have posted the link in the chat, so hopefully you can follow along too and just use this as reference for later, because I know this is a lot of information at one time, and you're probably going to be busy hacking. So yeah, so as long as can everyone see my screen? Yeah, it seems like it, yeah. So yeah, today we're going to be going over a lot about API fundamentals. I'm sure all of you have heard about maybe get, put, post requests and all of that basic stuff, but how does that really work with your projects? How do you get to use that in your own life? And it doesn't have to be as scary as you think. So I'm going to break down everything, even from the acronym itself, APIs, because a lot of people actually don't even know what it means. In the upper right-hand corner, you're going to see some QR codes. Feel free to scan it at any time. That is a Postman student expert training. I'll go into a little bit more depth about that later, but firstly, let's get into, first of all, who am I? I'm Lillian Osei. I'm a student programs developer advocate here. We are a team full of passionate people about education and tech, and we love enabling students to learn more about APIs and promoting API literacy. So we have 3 different programs on our team. We have the student expert team, which is probably the most useful for all of you. And then we also have the student leader team. So we also have student leaders who have done the student expert program, are eligible for student leaders, and it's an opportunity to have a leadership position on our campus. And I'll tell you all about that later, but for right now, oh, I don't think we can see your screen. Can no one? That is strange. How do I switch the screen? Perfect. Okay. Okay, you didn't miss much though. So this is pretty much it. Yeah, I didn't even get to go over this, so this is great. Everyone can see this right now, right? Just making sure. Just like a quick thumbs up. Great, cool. There's always these hiccups, so it's good that we got them out of the way earlier. Who am I? I am Lillian Osei. I am a developer advocate, said all that. Some fun facts about me. I got into coding pretty early on in high school. I did a lot of different sways in my career. I did some software engineering. I did some developer advocacy. I just recently came from Google and really loved it there, but I was also doing developer advocacy. So I think something about developer advocacy is not really that known, but it's a really great path if you don't want to do so much work behind a computer, but you also want to be able to connect with a lot of people. I think it's great to have that balance of, I love coding, I love building things, and I love building things for a greater purpose, which is just introducing them to developers and teaching. Teaching is like a really big, strong suit of mine. So yeah, other than that, some fun things. I went to the University of Maryland. I'm an alum there. I graduated recently about like a year ago. So very fresh. And other than that, I love Thai food. I have a pet cat named Pumpkin. Trivia, something I really love. And then I also play volleyball in my free time. So here's a little bit more about what we're going to cover today. So we have a background on what we do, what I do on my team. And what is an API? We're going to break all of that basic stuff down. Some APIs behind the scenes, what are clients, what are servers, what really goes on with a request. And then we're going to try things out. I'm going to have you hands-on work with APIs, work with Postman more importantly. And then we're going to have an infamous flag challenge, which is the most important part of the hackathon workshop. So a little bit about Postman and how we play a part into API education. A lot of people hear the word APIs and it's like, they kind of know what it is, but they don't really know how to work with it. I promise you it's not as scary as you think. And Postman, working with Postman makes it a lot simpler. So what is Postman, first of all? I've said it a ton of times. Maybe you're not even familiar with it, which is totally fine. I would not expect a lot of students to know what Postman is. Ultimately, it is something that 98% of Fortune 500 companies use. It is an API platform that simplifies using, testing, creating APIs with the UI. So it's very simplified. It's more so like a wrapper. If you're familiar with GitHub and Git, we are the GitHub to Git. So we have this student expert program, as I mentioned before. This is a great opportunity for you to learn a little bit more about APIs. Now this workshop is more so of a basic fundamental lesson, but if you want to go deeper into what we can do with APIs and what we can do with Postman, you can do a lot more. You can send more advanced requests, documentation generation, test scripts, which is really big, and then running collections and all that stuff. And the best part, if you finish the expert training, you get a certificate, which is completely free. And then second, you have the opportunity to become a leader at your campus. So big things for your resume. I would say if you are interested at all, just check it out, register, and it's completely non-committal. It's at your own pace. So what is an API? For a little pulse check, we have these 4 different UIs. So we have a user login at A, we have a Spotify page, and then we have some kind of generic like payment system on C, and then D is a messaging system. Maybe you know this. Which of these services involve APIs? You can just list out a letter. Anyone have any idea? And it's totally fine if you don't know. Oh, yeah, this is kind of a trick question, yes. So everything that involves another service it's all of them, yeah. So an API, to break it down completely, is an application programming interface. So this really is a fancy way of saying a contract that enables code to talk to code. So this can mean 2 things. This enables services to communicate with each other. So this is a lot of automation, integration, stuff like that. And then second thing is businesses to open up product features for faster innovation. So if we look back here, Spotify has its own API, and it's completely different from the Spotify that we use as users. But more for developers, there's a whole different section where you can work with its API. There's references, there's lots of endpoints that we can use and then pull data from them. And sometimes it's free, sometimes it's paid. That's how a lot of companies make their revenue too. It's a second source of revenue. This is applicable to a lot of different companies. Google has one. Every company. I think I have a list here, but I'm blanking on the top of my head. But So we're going to go through a list of APIs that I have prepared for you. So I have this link in the slide deck if you're following along, and it should be, the workspace should be this one. I'm not sure if anyone's on here yet, and this is quite small actually. So let's see if everyone can see it. Yeah, so I have a couple of collections here. So this is what Postman firstly looks like. There's a lot going on here. I have a lot of tabs open, so let's close all of that out. This is what the workspace we're working with is. So a workspace is comprised of a lot of collections, and the great thing about Postman is that each collection or workspace, it's highly collaborative. So working with APIs is a lot easier with Postman. I don't know if I have this in the slide deck, but back in the future, just to be really appreciative of what Postman does, back in the past, before my day, there was these curl commands. So I don't know if I can show you what they look like actually, curl commands. I wish I had a picture of them, but yeah, they don't look pretty. They're like kind of like this, and you have to parse this to make an API request. So very grateful for what we have now. This opposed to, let me show you Google's. So opposed to this. So that exactly what we saw is referenced in this. So same thing, different wrapper. We have the URL request here. We have our methods here, which is just get, post, put, patch. Everything's super pretty. That's what my favorite thing about Postman is, super aesthetic. We have perfect tables for headers. We have a great place for a body, test scripts. It can be really simple. So we can get started with a simple thing. So we can do google.com. What happens here? This is what we see on our basic search, right? Let's say converting that to this, whenever we go and search something in Google, let's say we want to get requests. Get is getting data. We'll go over all the methods later, but for right now, we don't need to do anything. Let's just put the URL as google.com and see what happens. Just send it. And we get a lot of things back, and it's pretty much just HTML. So yeah, search the world's information. It has the schema. And the great thing about this is you can actually preview this. And of course, there's no CSS styling, but if you go into here, this is pretty much what we get. Now, there's a couple things to note here. There are a few things. There's the status here, which is 200 OK. And you've probably come across this if you've ever tried things out. 200 OK is one of the status requests that we check, and it is probably the most beneficial one for us. It is just things are great and they're working as perfectly. And then everything else we don't really need to pay attention to. But yeah, we can preview this and we know that it's a successful request. Now, what happens when we search something? So if I want to search up ignition hacks, All right, so what really happens here? So if we go into inspect and we go into, we go into, this is a lot of stuff that we don't really necessarily know how to read. But if we take that same search request, let's exit out of here. Oh, it's up here. So if we go up here and we search on ignition hacks, we can see it's /search ? Q equals ignition hacks. Okay, that we understand, right? That's probably what we're searching for, right? What about the ampersand and everything after it? What does this really mean? How does it break down? How is Google reading all of this? Now, I don't really know myself, so I'm going to copy all of this. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to just, this is already done for me. So let me take it out real quick. And then starting with 0 parameters, nothing. And now pay attention to what happens. I just put that huge URL in and look at what just filled out. We have all of these query parameters, key value pairings, and granted, I still don't know what it means. I guess we will never know, but we can probably reverse engineer this if we really wanted to. But with any other search query or any other URL that has a lot of this, using Postman is a great way to simplify things. So you can always come back here and we will do all the hard stuff and decipher all of that and then put it in a nice tabular form. So that's a great perk about using Postman. And then also, if we run it, we get a 200 OK. Sometimes using using API requests to something like Amazon or Google or something like that will result in a timeout. So just be really careful. You will run into that. Oh, fun fact, if you have ever gotten a CAPTCHA or a CAPTCHA, whatever it's pronounced, saying, are you a robot? And you're like, obviously I'm a robot, or not a robot. This is what they're looking for. Yeah, they're basically checking for people who are abusing their API requests and trying to overload their servers. So be careful with that. Sometimes if you run it too frequently, they'll catch you and be like, this is suspicious behavior. So be very careful of that. Nothing bad's going to happen to you, but sometimes your app won't work the way you want it to. So rate limiting is also a great thing. But yeah, if we go in here and preview, you'll see everything here is presented, which is really cool. So, all right. And then to show you something a little bit more advanced, this is what we could do. This is the Spotify API. And I'm going to show you a little bit about what developers are using. So if you've ever seen a web app for Spotify, it might not be Spotify Wraps, but these are like third-party Spotify Wraps where you input your username or something, and they take all of your data and then they compile what's your favorite genre, or maybe like what's your favorite album that you're listening to, or what are these recommendations that you should be listening to. All of those things are using the Spotify API, and that can be a potential project for you too. So there's lots of potential with any product that you're using pretty much. And we'll go over the different types of APIs too. But the one difficult thing about APIs and using them is probably going to be authorization, besides the paid wall. So the Spotify API is free for as far as I can remember. There are going to be a limit on the amount of requests you make per hour, but for hackathons and all of your side projects, that really shouldn't be a problem unless you decide to make it really public. But I went through the authorization so I can show you all, but I'm going to show you how to kind of read API documentation to start with. So APIs come with really great documentation. A good API is almost as good as its documentation. So I really want to iterate that. Hopefully any API you're working with, or if you create an API, it should be heavily, heavily documented so that other people can use it. But let's see. So let's say you wanted to get a singular album with an ID. You can actually put in the ID of the album you want in the market that you want, and you can try it, and then it'll actually give you a response sample of what you should be looking for. Now, this might just look like gibberish to you, but this is really valuable information that we can predict and then parse that in our test results or test scripts. And then this will give you a curl request. And the really cool thing about Postman is that if you take the curl request here, like the Google search, you can also, let's see, I'm going to add a request here. And I'm actually going to, no, I'm not going to import. I'm going to do this. I'm just going to paste that whole curl request and it'll pop up here. So obviously I don't want all of this. It also comes with the authorization header here, which I don't want. And then I don't think this worked, but yeah, you can just import that easily. So it's a matter of just copying and pasting. So that's a great documentation example that I love showing. But yeah, you can get artists. And there's a couple of things you can do. This one's Pitbull. And I'll come back to showing you exactly what all of these things do. But coming back to this real quick. What's going on behind the scenes? Now we got a little bit too deep into Postman and all the requests that we've done, but what really is going on? So the classic analogy is the waiter and the restaurant analogy. So you'll probably hear this a couple of times when you look up what an API is, but just to reiterate again, this is a really helpful example that helped me at least. Let's imagine that you are at a restaurant and you want to order your favorite dish in the world and you don't know how to cook it, or you just don't want to cook it. You don't have the ingredients for it. And we just don't know how to cook it. But we go to a restaurant that has our favorite dish. Let's say it's like mac and cheese or something, and we don't know how to make it. We go to this restaurant, the finest of all restaurants, like Applebee's or something. And Applebee's has this chef, the head chef, who makes the best mac and cheese in the world. So The head chef has the ingredients and knows the recipe, but you personally don't know the recipe. So there is a knowledge gap between the chef and you. Now in the middle here, we have a waiter. So the waiter also doesn't know anything. The waiter is basically just kind of the message guy. So you call over the waiter. The waiter's like, what do you want to order? And the waiter knows everything on the menu. That's pretty much it. So he has a menu, you order from the menu, you order the mac and cheese. The waiter doesn't know anything else, just knows that you want mac and cheese. And then he goes to the restaurant, back to the chef, the finest head chef, and tells him that you want the mac and cheese. That is called a request. So he is just essentially taking your request and sending it back to our backend, which is our chef. Now the chef knows exactly what to do once he hears that. And he's like, mac and cheese, I got it. I have the recipe. I know how to make it. So he whips that up real quick and then he sends it back to the waiter. The waiter doesn't need to know how it was made. He honestly does not care. He's not getting paid enough for it. So he takes the mac and cheese and he sends it back to us, the user. That is a response. What we get back from our backend is called a response. And then what we send to our backend is a request. So that really helps me when I was understanding APIs. So I hope that was clear enough. But if we want to look at it a little bit more in the client server aspect, so we can say that the client is our user. Whenever we're in a browser, we click a button, we send a message or something, that is a request to our backend because we want something to happen. We're expecting things to change. So we send a button or we click something on our client, that's a request to our backend. Our backend, our API takes it and it's like, okay, they want to refresh the page or something. They want to refresh the page, but I'm not going to do anything. I just know the language. I have the menu of things that we can do. And this is one of them. So the API sends the refresh page request to the API server. The server is doing its thing. It sends a response saying, it was great, or there was something that went wrong. And then you take that response and then it either updates the page itself or it says, sorry, there was an error. So some pulse checks. What are some APIs that you've come across? Or even better, if you're doing a project right now, what are you working on right now? What do you think that you're interested in working with? I know we mentioned Spotify. There's Google. There's also Twilio. There's SendGrid. There's so much. But yeah, I'm really curious to hear what lots of people are using. Another popular one is OpenAI. I don't know if anyone's worked with OpenAI. Google Auth, that's a good one. Very practical. Ooh, Discord. Has anyone worked with Discord and made a bot before? Nice. Oh, Google Cloud Photos. Yeah, wait, why was it a pain? It was probably the authorization. That's cool, nice. Yeah, you guys are ahead of the game, honestly. I think when I was in high school, I was not concerned with APIs. But this is great. No, yeah, this is really cool. Yeah, excited to see all of your projects too. I think hopefully with IMDb, yeah, I think I've seen that one too, but that's really cool, yeah. Well, yeah, I'm excited to see all of your projects with those and the future ones. But yeah, digging deeper, requests and responses. We've did a little bit of looking into the Spotify ones. And we saw a lot of things. I didn't really explain them, but now we'll go over them a little bit. So here in the pictures, we'll see this is just a request, a post request up top. This is, I'm assuming, to Twilio. It is comprised of a base URL variable and then a couple of paths and then a path variable. And then there's a lot going on here. And then this is the response over here. Okay, so what is in a request? We have a method, we have an endpoint / a path, parameters, headers, and a body. So this is what's going to make up a request. And you'll see it in Postman in various different places. But what are they? Are they really that important? Can you really explain it to someone? First, methods and endpoints. So this is the bare minimum, the very bare minimum that you would need to understand. So explained with the google.com search, we can talk about the method first. So this is similar to our CRUD method. So if you've ever heard of the term CRUD, that is create, read, update, and delete. So this really follows that framework. So we have get, which we just use for most of our things, which is get, which is retrieve information, post is sending information. And then we have put and patch, which is a little bit of a weird area. So this is for updating information, and most API developers will create it as one single thing. It becomes a little bit more complicated when developers have them as two separate things. So more specifically, put is if you are creating a whole new record and you want to update the entire record. Record is like a row in like a data column or database, but patch is more so like if you want to update like the name, like, I got a new last name, so let's just update my last name and keep everything else. That would be patch. And delete is just deleting, yeah. Oh, someone asked, best resources to learn more about APIs. The Student Expert Program, I would highly, highly recommend it. I am going to spam that as much as I can, but if you are in the slide deck, follow the QR codes and just scan that and you'll be brought to the Student Expert Program, but that goes way deeper into APIs than this. And then going back to this, the address, sorry. The address of the server is the URL that we plug into here. And this is the google.com/search. So breaking this down, what does this really mean? So the HTTPS, I don't know if you've ever paid attention to it, but that is actually called the protocol. So, and then the www, that part is the host. That is what we usually are all familiar with. And then the path is the /search. So that can be the destination on the server where the request is heard and requested. So that can be changed to anything, and that'll redirect you to different pages. So now parameters. This is where we add specificity. We have query parameters, which is what we did in Google search, which was adding. We see that it starts with a question mark, and then we have Q equals whatever. And in this case, we did ignition hacks. And then key value pairs are joined with ampersands. So we have one query which is for nature, and then we have another one for orientation is landscape. So that's kind of how you combine them if you ever want to do it manually. But in Postman, you can just list them out. Path parameters are a little bit different. They come directly after a slash, and they're usually an ID value. This is more specific, and it's a dynamic element. So it's not something, it's something that's changeable. It's also great for identification. Now, we just went over it, so I won't force you all to say exactly what the difference was. But yeah, just to recap, query parameters are more so for just searching. That's a really big thing. If you want specific requests information, a great way is to say, like, if you want, for example, we have a library API. Let's look for fiction books. That's a great thing. A great thing about APIs is that they'll have the documentation. So if they have a query parameter, they'll list it. And then if they have like a thing called genre, you can search specifically for genres. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And then path parameters are great for IDs. So we will come across another API where we have to input an ID. Same with Spotify. So if you said you wanted to look for an album of specific ID, that's a path parameter. All right, so moving on to requests, headers. So headers have key value pairs for non-payload information. So you don't have to pay too much attention to these all the time, but these are some really common ones that you will run into. So there's authorization, there's cookies, there's content type, accept, user agent. And sometimes you'll need them for debugging. Authorization is obviously a huge one. There's a couple ways where you can do authorization, honestly, but these are the 5 that you'll probably see the most. Content type is something that maybe you're looking for, like application/JSON. That's just looking for the form as JSON format. But you can see all the headers here. If you're in the slide deck, you can also click on the link and just read all about it here. Documentation, I'm telling you, is your best friend. So, all right. Now moving on to the body. This is a really great place for posting post, put, or patch requests. So when you ever want to update or create data, this is where you kind of input it. So we have a fake JSON thing on the right example where you're putting the name, Jane Doe, email janedoe@email.com, and then birth year 1970. You can see that this is in JSON format. So if you're not familiar with it, you can just look it up, or you can do a converter. But there's other data types. There's form data, there's JSON, there's text, there's HTML, there's so much. But But this is where we put in the data that we want to send to the server. So I just went over it, but just to make sure that everyone's on the same page, can you remember exactly what goes into the request? Just list out as many as you can remember. I think it was 5 things, 4 things. Anyone want to give it a try? Yeah, method is definitely part of it. Now that was one part of the bare minimum of our request, right? So what was the second one? Yeah, perfect. Jane got it all. So congrats. Yeah, that is method, header, body, query, and path parameters. That is pretty much all there is to it. Hopefully that helps with all of your basic requests. And just kind of, if you're going through Postman and you're reading through some requests, hopefully you can read it a little bit better. Yeah, thank you everyone for answering. Now we're going to go into responses. So that was only one part of the problem here. So we have requests, which we covered in all our experts on clearly. And now we have the anatomy of a response. So we have status codes, we have headers, and then we have body data. So this is arguably the most important part for creating your projects. We want to know what is inside the body data so we can use that data. Status codes are also very important, but we'll go over that. That's more of a memorization thing and looking it up. Now, status codes, we've all seen them at some point, I'm pretty sure, but maybe you've never had to pay attention to them. So some of these will look a little bit more familiar to you than others. 200 OK is what we went over right now. That is the A-OK, you're clear to go status. That is what we want to see ideally in all of our requests, but that is often not the case. And if you don't know, there's actually a method to the madness here. They're not just random numbers. So 200s are the success ones. That's the ones we want to see, unless you actually don't intend to create something, which is a problem in its own. But we have 200, which is okay, 201, which is created, and 204, which is no content. I've actually never seen 204 before, but yeah, some of these are a little bit more rare than others. 300s are redirection, 400s are client errors, and then 500s are server error. So the way I like to think about it is that 400 errors are usually my fault. So I'm doing something wrong. 500 errors are server errors, and most of the time, unless I'm implementing something, it's not really, there's something else going on. So 400's the one that you're probably very used to right now is 404 not found. That means the response the request hasn't found the specific resource. So 401 is also another one that you're going to run into that is unauthorized. If you haven't put like an API key or an access token, that's probably going to pop up a lot. 400 is bad request. That means there's something wrong with the way that you implemented your request. Maybe there's no body data, maybe there's a wrong header, something like that. So these are all really great clues as to what went wrong. And now this resource, my coworker loves using this. Whenever, instead of adding status codes or error messages, she will literally put like the image link to this. So if you want to learn more about them, they're actually kind of useful. So if you want to like actually learn about status codes, you can go into them. They'll have a cute little picture, and then they'll also have a description, which is a little bit more readable than normal documentation. So yeah, so if you ever want some kind of resource like that, feel free to use it. Now, pulse check again. Why do you think status codes are important? Why do we as developers need status codes? And if you are ever curious about status codes, there's actually a very big history and some inside joke ones that come up when you look at status codes. So there's like a few weird ones that have like really wacky error messages. So feel free to look it up if you're curious. Yeah, we technically depend on cross. Yeah, we do. And yeah, to debug, to indicate what's happening. Yeah, all of this is very true. Besides, yeah, errors and help us debug. Because sometimes we as developers aren't really great at error handling. When you're developing code or something like that, you're doing your hackathon projects, is your first thought to make very specific error messages? Probably not, yeah. And that slips our minds a lot. So to kind of help with that, we need some kind of standardized way of knowing what's going on without slowing us down and being completely stuck. So having something standardized like that that's automatically done is really great for us as developers to not get blocked as much. So this really helps the world go round for developers. Now we're going to go into a little bit more interactive stuff. So if you can just come over to the workspace that we were working with, I'm going to help you go to this. You can fork this actually, I'm pretty sure. So I'm not sure if anyone has access to, okay, I'm going to put this in the private chat and then hopefully someone can put it into the big chat. But if you're in the slide deck, just take that link and it's going to open up to something like this. And once you have that open, you should come over to the right hand side with the 3 dots and then create a fork. Well, I can't do that, but because I already have it open, but for you, it should work. Let me know if it doesn't work for you guys. Yeah, thank you for posting that, but hopefully that works. Yeah, and we're going to go over a little bit of this. So I am going to go over the very basic things while you guys are forking that. So this is comprised of our own API that we created. This is the library API that we've been talking about. So this is very literally a live library. So we have students from all over using this API. So we can add our own book, which we are going to do eventually. So we can get a book right now. Let's just look at what's in the library. So that's my mistake. I am set to the wrong environment. So when you do create this, there's going to be some documentation in the beginning where you have to add authorization. And so for your sake, we don't want you to go through real authorization. So we have a standard API key and password. So we have, make sure in here when you fork it, you have authorization set as API key, and then set your key to API dash key. And then we have, I have a variable here. Variables are great at storing keys, but for this sake, for this case, I don't really need this to be secret. This is already a public key, so we can do, it's Postman rules. Busy at the end. And then make sure you're saving, because that's a really annoying feature with just an autosave. So I don't want any of you guys to freak out when it doesn't save. So Postman rules, that should work. And then you're good to go pretty much. You can test it all out. So when I send this request, base URL is including the actual base URL, which is the API base URL. You're not getting anything under authorization? Yeah. So if you go into here, if I said nothing like no auth, that's probably what yours is going to say, right? So I would scroll down to API key. And then we can do API dash key as our key, and then Postman rules. This is what you're going to run into a lot when you're setting up API requests. So this is a great way to practice with something that's very low stakes. So if you're running into that issue, you can come into the very top one where it says Postman library v2, and then go to authorization, and then go to API key. Just scroll down here into API key, and then the values are API dash key, and then Postman rules. This is also in the documentation for this, I believe. Yeah. It hopefully should be all here in this documentation part. Yeah, you'll need to set the API key and collection variables to Postman rules to make requests. All right, so if we just make that basic request to get all of the books in our library, you'll get something like this. So you'll get all of these titles, you'll get all of these random books, and these are all books that students have created. And to be fair, the basic one that we have an example of on our tutorials is To Kill a Mockingbird. These are all students who have done our student expert program training. So when our example is To Kill a Mockingbird and that's all you need to do, that's what ends up being repeated a lot. But yeah, this library is deleted or cleared every 3 days. So once you add something, you'll actually be able to see it for a while. So it's pretty cool. And you can see there's a lot of books. So we're going to go through how to add your own. So make sure that you can get the library or the value of the authorization. It should be Postman rules with a Z instead of the E. API-key, and these are very case sensitive. So for the key and value, make sure that they're matching exactly. Okay, so back to here. So we can say that this is okay, so that we're just scrolling through. You can see that each book has an ID, a title, an author, a genre, year published, checked out, permanent. Permanent collection is basically, we have a set of books that are just always here. And then we also have a created at time, which is just a timestamp. So we also have a set of other requests that involve IDs. So looking at our GET requests, let's maybe say stay informed. I don't know what this book is, but let's say I wanted to take it. So I'm going to copy the ID actually, and I'm going to replace whatever is here. This is a path variable that we mentioned before. This is taking in the ID, and we'll just paste in the ID of the book that we really wanted to keep. So I'm going to save this and send it. And look, we got Stay Informed, all the data on Stay Informed, which is really cool because if we ever had an idea of a book that we really wanted to know the details of, let's just say I just wanted to go through all of them, I can just pull one directly. All right. It's not letting me select an API key. Are you in the top level of Postman library? It should be Postman Library API v2 docs. You should be forking it first. That's the biggest issue. So make sure you're going over here, create a fork, and then you should be able to alter it however you want. There should also be details on the documentation too, up here. So don't worry if you can't follow along completely, but you can always do it on your own time after too. So let's say you wanted to update it too. I want to say maybe let's check it out. Let's check out this book. So this says the checked out field of this is false, which means it's still available. Let's update this. So I'm going to change the ID to the book that I'm interested in, save it, and then I'm going to change the body to say checked out is equal to true. Now what happens? Now it's set to true when it used to be false. So you can alter pieces of information and data through this request. So that's called a patch function or a patch method. Now, what if we wanted to delete that book? Now, I don't want to delete someone's book, so that would be really mean, but it's pretty much the same thing. You just paste in your ID, and then that's how you get away with it. But let's do the fun stuff now. So let's all post a book. Now, if you go to the post add a book, this is a post request, so your book is actually going to be added to the library once you add it. The only thing is you need to add your title, author, genre, and year published, which should already be pre-populated for you. So I don't know if you have any book titles that you want me to add. I am blanking on a name, but this was the last one that the last session did. So if you want to do it on your own, feel free to do it on your own. But if you want to help me think of a book to add, we can do that too. This is just adding to the base URL and the books search path. So books path, yeah. And we're putting in raw JSON. So let's see if anyone has any books that you're reading right now that we want to talk about. "48 Laws of Power" by Robert Greene. That seems like a real hefty book. Is that nonfiction? Cracking the coding interview. I'm dead. Hope that grind is going well for you. Oh, Jerry Spinelli. I used to love Jerry Spinelli before. Nonfiction? I figured that would be a crazy fiction name. So I'm going to just go with the first one that I saw, but I am curious about your book recommendations. I have not read a good book in a while, so Robert Greene. Never outshine. Robert Greene. Okay. With an E. I don't really care about year published. It's fine. But this is pretty much the basic stuff that we need to add in our body. Let's save it first of all. You can see there's no parameters. Authorization is inherited from our collection variable, which you'll learn more about if you do the student expert program. All the variables, authorization, you'll be a pro at that if you do the training. Headers, this is pretty much automatically generated, so we don't need to worry about any of that. We have the body, which is what we're focused on, and then let's do the thing. Let's send it. Now, here we go. We have an ID generator for us now. We have checked out, which is generated for us. Its permanent collection is false, created at, this is the timestamp that we created. And now if we do, we get the status 201 created, which is really cool. Now, if we do get books, we can see it updated in our library. So feel free to post your own books. It's always really satisfying to see something change in real time. So this is a really great way to see your changes being made. But yeah, that was pretty much a full life cycle of requests and response and kind of seeing how it affects things. And this is a very basic example. There's obviously a lot that you can do from this. Given the data here, you can really parse this, and maybe you want to run through the loop, and maybe you want to add every unique book or something, or you want to just sort it, or you want to make a visualization. We've done tons of visualizations before of maybe you can do like a virtual library. You can upload like an URL of the image. There's lots that you can do here, sorting it by checked out. But yeah, this is the very base data, and you'll have to learn how to parse this. This is all in JavaScript that you can parse it. This is like a JSON object, but using JavaScript or whatever language you want, this is really helpful to know just so you can parse through it later. And yeah, that's pretty much all I'm going to go over. So we have, with this at least, but going back to Spotify, this is like a really basic collection that you can use as well. I just wanted to provide like a baseline of what you can use with any collection. As with any collection, you can always go to the 3 dots on the side, create a fork, and then start playing with it on your own. And the great thing with Postman is that you can also search up any API. So like maybe let's do OpenAI. We have the DevRel team, which is Postman's DevRel team, and we have all of these really well documented models. So let's see, like list models, like completions, create completion, chat, create chat message completion. If you ever want to use an API and you're kind of curious about it, but you don't really know how to play around with it, please use Postman. It makes your life so much easier. So whatever you're interested in, there's OpenAI, there's Hugging Face, there's Spotify. There's so much. Yeah, this is actually the real data stuff, but yeah, there's so much. Yeah, this is all the Google stuff. There's lots of documentation. Anything that says by API and I don't know how you say it. Actually, I'm like blanking in evangelist, but yeah, embarrassing. But yeah, that's pretty much a really helpful resource. That's what I use a lot of the time. A lot of people are really devoted for creating collections on Postman, so it makes it a really great resource. You can use Postman for SMS texting. Yes, you can. Yeah, you can definitely use it. We have, I don't know if there's any free ones. There's definitely free ones, but the one that's most popular is Twilio, obviously. API hacking with Postman. That is something that I am not super familiar with, but something that you can probably do with Postman. So we won't get into it now, but it's definitely something worth looking into. Pulse check. We are running a little bit short on time, but we can talk about what's CRUD and how does it relate to HTTP methods. So I talked about this a little bit before. I mentioned this in the very beginning, but does anyone remember what CRUD is and then how it relates to HTTP methods? Are key and value same for all APIs? No. So that's a good question. That's a really good question. So not all APIs are going to be using the same format of API-key. There's different types of authorization. Lots of APIs that are like real will use OAuth 2, OAuth 3.0, or something like access tokens where you can generate a new access token for yourself and you can use that, like bearer tokens. So you really have to read the documentation and see how that API or how that company wants you to use it. But yeah, that is a whole learning process on its own, and it's definitely not a simple one. So it's definitely tricky, but very worth it. Yeah, create, read, update, and delete, and that directly relates to our HTTP methods, which is get, put, post, patch, delete. That is pretty much falling right into create, read, update, and delete. So great job. So generating code, we have a few cool new features actually. we have a few cool new features. So this one is my favorite, actually. This is generate code to make an API call. So we have this feature in Postman where it actually integrates code for you in your project. So the hardest part, yes, maybe you can make a request on here, but what do you actually do with that information besides knowing the actual response? Maybe it's a great testing tool for you. Maybe you've only used Postman to test and see what responses you're getting. But this is the gap that you're missing. This is the hard part. So if you ever want to integrate your request into your code, you can actually make us do it. And I will show you exactly how. So going to, oh, I lost it. No. Okay, yeah, going back to here. So if I wanted to do something with Spotify, for example, like I wanted to get something like current user, I will go into here. This is like the sidebar. This is a little bracket section with that says code. It's going to say code snippet. And looking into here, there are a lot of languages. Whatever language you have, maybe it's not on here, but a lot of them are going to be on here. So let's say, for example, you want to use like Go native. This is what you need to plug into your code. And yeah, it's pretty much making the request for you. So that is the hard part for a lot of people, just really connecting Postman and using this and making requests to actually using this in your code. And I would highly, highly recommend, maybe this still has some bugs. Honestly, it's a great step in the first step in the direction that you're taking. And especially for hackathons when you're crunched on time, I would highly utilize this. Use ChatGPT to debug the rest of it. You know, I highly, highly recommend using code snippets because it has saved my life on multiple occasions. So there's lots of languages. Go crazy with it. There's only a few things that you would need to edit. I think it's still really, yeah, so that's really cool. All right. And do we copy paste the snippet into your code? Yeah, so you can copy and paste this whole snippet into your own files and then work with the data that way. So this way, let's show you Node.js. Which one is the one I've worked with? So there's fetch, JavaScript fetch, which is really common. So here is a code snippet that I've used before. And this is taking the URL and then it's taking the response in a then chain promise. There, instead of logging it and just logging the result, you can actually use the response and then parse it. Say, I want to take all of this response. Let's split it into a list or something. Like this one's saying get a current user. Let's say I want to take exactly this amount of followers I have or something. So let's say I want response.body.data. Followers or something. And I have no idea what the actual body is, but that is something you can do and you can use that data later in your code. So this is a great way to work with APIs. Now I don't have that much time left, but let's see, going back to this. Another great feature, I'm sorry, I really want to show you this one because this one's really cool too. But trivia, this is a really simple API. I'm going to just show you the results. It's super simple. There's just like a list. This is a completely free API that you can use, no authorization needed. But yeah, you get all these results of questions and answers. And then the cool thing is we also have something for tests. So we have an AI generator for tests. And let's say I don't need all that. So I want to make something with Postbot, which is in beta right now, but you can do an AI little thing. So I want to say visualize results as a list of questions and answers. And hopefully this works just as well as it did before, but it's been pretty good to me. And look at that, all that code generates that I would probably have to look up before, if I'm being honest. So let's say, same thing, 200, okay? And now if we go to visualize, look at that. And it's, okay, to be fair, it's not the prettiest. Is it formatted most correctly? No. But did I write a single bit of code? Absolutely not. So that saves you so much time. And honestly, I learn best from seeing what's already there and then kind of editing and tweaking it to see what's going to work. But that would be really great for some beginners as well. But yeah, that's enough of showing you Postman and just gloating about it. But yeah, that is pretty much it. This is a recap of everything we've done. We broke down what is an API, APIs behind the scenes, a little bit about Postman student programs, and then we just tried a ton of things out. So here are all the resources. If you want to learn more, we do a lot of live streams. We do YouTube videos of like how to build things out, and then we have documentation, lots of it. We have lots of public APIs available on explore.postman.com, and then we have a forum. And of course, if you are ever curious about more student expert stuff, please scan this QR code. This is a really, really helpful. I'm going to actually copy the link and put it here. This is a really helpful training, and if you're curious at all, I think this will really help. This is a really useful tool to have when you're applying for jobs, internships. You're going to be using Postman most likely everywhere, and to develop with Postman is really helpful, especially with CodeGen, all that AI, postbots. So yeah, why not? Also, becoming a student leader, just leadership positions are always great. Yeah, so that is it. I'm going to leave this up for a little bit. I don't think there's any more after this. We also have the Postman Student Community Discord. So if you want any troubleshooting help with your expert training or just learning about other APIs that we have a really big community. So you can always join here. Oh yeah, so we have the swag challenge, which I'm going to go over really fast. So I think there's only one way to win swag. So share your learnings that you learned today with me. So we have a chance to win swag. If you submit something, that is your chance of winning. You can share it on Twitter or X now, and then LinkedIn, sorry, it's or. And then you just share your learnings with hashtag Postman Student and hashtag Ignition Hacks. And then you send it to my email, lillian.knows@postman.com. with a subject swag contest. And then, yeah, you have 1 week to do it. And then we'll determine winners later. Yeah, I shared the slides with you, so you can always look back at this later too. But yeah, I will send you the feedback form, but also, yeah, any questions, I will leave this slide up actually so that you guys can look at it a little bit more. But if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask. I am also going to share my feedback form here too. All right, questions. At Humi tomorrow. I don't believe I will be. I don't really know what that is, but yeah, I'm not going to be there. But if you have any other questions, feel free to email me. I am always available. You can contact me at lillian.knows postman.com. And then what's the anatomy of response? That was the status code, that was the headers, and that was the body, which has all the data that we got back from the response that we can parse. Any other questions? Wow, it got a lot darker in the time that I've been presenting. Oh yeah, trying to use an API, but I don't know how to get the bearer token. So is this with the Postman library API? Because you don't need a bearer token for that one, but you need the API key and then value. All APIs are a little bit different. You're probably going to have, if it's any other API than the one we just went over, you're probably going to have to create a developer account, and then you're going to have to create an access token. Oh, okay. So that was the API that we just went over. I can go over that really quickly. So you can go into here. Oh, it's a different one? Oh, okay, cool. That makes more sense. But yeah, so if it's a different one, you're going to have to probably create an app, or not an app, like an app account. And usually you'll get, for Spotify, I think you have to you have to create a new app, and then within the app, it creates a bearer token for you. You don't necessarily have to create an app. But yeah, there's a bearer token associated with each app. So you would have to create an account first, a developer account, and then create an app, and then you access it. There's lots of YouTube videos. That's honestly how I learned. So I would utilize that as much as you can. Hopefully that works out for you. Authorization is honestly so tricky, and Spotify's especially. Yeah, I got warnings from other people when setting it up. It was like, it's a tricky one, but yeah. Any other questions by anyone? No problem. Yeah, glad I can help. But yeah, hopefully all of you are going to take Student Expert Program. I'm excited to see all of you in the Discord. And also the Student Leader Program. Me personally, I am helping everyone in the America, Canada region. So if you sign up to be a student leader, I will be working with you a lot. And there is a stipend per year. I want to believe there's an exclusive swag kit. So highly, highly recommend that opportunity. Plus, I would love to work with more people from America and Canada. So always a plus. Yeah, that is the app ID and app secret. So you don't need a bearer token. So that is I believe Spotify uses OAuth too. So yeah, you'll have to look a little bit more about. There's different authorization types, but you can take the Postman Student Expert training to learn more about them. Yeah, and of course, thank you to all the hackathon organizers for accommodating for me and having a great platform. So thank you everyone for joining. Hopefully you have a great rest of your hackathon and happy hacking.